Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another short edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. On one half the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt. And this episode, effectively, we're just kind of wrap. We're just trying to wrap the West Indies versus South Africa series, a fantastic, comprehensive, never in doubt, really and truly, 3-0 series win. And probably for the first time since the start of the good T20 form, and by that I mean the 2-1 win away in South Africa, February last year, I think that was, the 2-1 win against India, the 3-2 win against England, 2-1 defeat against Australia, and now a 3-0 win against South Africa. Probably for the first time in that stretch of games, I'm willing to accept that West Indies have genuine momentum on their side. Caveat, does that mean they will go on to get to the semi-finals of the World Cup, win the World Cup? I don't know. And in truth, nobody knows. Anybody watching this, you don't know. You really don't know. Any of the so-called established cricket pundits, you don't know. Ultimately, cricket, and particularly T20 cricket, some of it's guesswork, because it's such a volatile format of the game that all you really need is one magnificent out-of-the-box innings from anybody, and the game can change just like that. Or of course, obviously, a magnificent bowling performance. And it's the one format of the game where the gap between sides from full member to associate is the smallest, right? So I'm willing to accept we got some great momentum on our side. There's clearly a vibe. There's clearly a belief. There's clearly buy-in to a greater purpose and a greater goal, which is what we always thought that Darren Sammy and his backroom staff would probably bring to the West Indies white ball setup. So that's undeniable. No, you can't watch those three performances and see the performances over the last year and claim that isn't there. But I do think that you have to be rational and say that doesn't mean, that doesn't prove that West Indies will have a magnificent World Cup. I hope they do. We all hope they do. Everyone has their different versions of what success looks like. For me, it's still get out of the group first, get past New Zealand and Afghanistan, Uganda and Papua New Guinea, and then anything after that is a bonus for me. Sometimes when I say that to people, they're like, Mash, how can you be so small in your thinking about the World Cup? Semi-finals is the minimum. Winning it should be the goal. Yeah, I hear all that. But in our last 3 World Cups, and I'm including the ODI one in there, I always wonder if people remember this. 2021 World Cup, we won 1 game out of 5 in the main group stage. That was against Bangladesh. I think it was our penultimate game. And that was it, crashed out in our defense of the 2016 World Cup. 2022, the next one, we didn't even get to the main stage. We played in a prelim group against Zimbabwe, Ireland and Scotland, lost to Ireland, lost to Scotland, didn't even make it to the main stage of the World Cup. 2023 ODI World Cup, we played in the World Cup qualifiers, lost to Netherlands, lost to Scotland, lost to Sri Lanka, didn't even make it to the main stage of the ODI World Cup. And I say this to say that a lot of the players who are in this T20 setup were part of certainly the last 2 World Cup campaigns that we've had. So if you look at that stretch over the last 3 World Cups that we've had, we've won 1 game, really and truly, in the main stage of a World Cup. So whilst I'm accepting there's an obvious momentum and there's an obvious vibe, and clearly some of you will say, listen to this, but Match 2024 is different to what went in the past. That was a different team. That was a different era. we still have to be mindful. And the caveat for me is the beast that is the World Cup, the mental energy, the amount you have to dial in and lock in when it's dog eat dog, winner, loser, go home, World Cup knockout fixtures. That's a different set of mentality. That's not a bilateral series win against England. That's not a bilateral series win against India. That's not a bilateral series win against South Africa. That's win or go home. If you see what I mean, it's not lose, oh, but we can win the next two games and win the series. World Cup is win or go home. And in the last few World Cups, we've been found wanting when it's come to mental strength and closing out games. Now, I hope that this stretch over the last year means that we've got a new entity in front of us, and that this belief and this momentum that I think we're seeing, hopefully that carries on into the World Cup. But forgive me if I'm going to wait to see it happen before declaring that it's going to happen. But either way, 3-0 win, big up your chest, pump up your chest, everybody who's involved in that. The Sabina Park crowds who came out for all three games, pump up your chest as well. You were the quote unquote 12th person who helped get the team over the line. The vibes was obviously great. And again, the lie that cricket in Jamaica is completely defunct, or support for cricket in Jamaica is completely defunct, well, that was exposed. Marketing of cricket in Jamaica, well, that's a different issue. But support for cricket, we should, well, the Sabina Park crowd showed, put a product in front of them, market it properly, and man will show up. Anyways, here's my key takeaways from the series against South Africa. Just some things I jotted down after the game yesterday. So number one, Charles and King will obviously open. Johnson Charles again showed what Johnson Charles can do. Johnson Charles, I said it in the last video, Johnson Charles is still going to be Johnson Charles. He's probably, in fact, this series summed it up perfectly. Johnson Charles is very much a 1 in every 3 type guy. And you see when he hits that 1 innings that comes off, it's usually at a ridiculous strike rate. I can't remember what it was yesterday. Was it like 250 or something? He scored, he won the man of the match, 69 of 26 balls. He hit to a strike rate of 265 against what was some ordinary bowling. Let's not pretend like the bowling was good, but the ball still have to be there to be hit, right? And he hit them out of the park several times in that score of 69, 9 4s, 5 6s. And that's why Johnson Charles is in the West Indies team, because when he comes off, it's never a small knock. It's always something huge and something substantial that turns the game in West Indies' favour. The game was over quickly because of Johnson Charles. Brandon King obviously had a very good series in front of his home crowd. We don't need to, I mean, he scored 44 of 28 at a strike rate of 157, which is good, but it just looks sedate in the context of what Johnson Charles was doing. 2 4s and 4 6s for Brandon King. So Charles and King have solidified themselves at the top of the order. We know now that there's going to be 5 reserves. So Carl Mayers and Andre Fletcher will battle it out for who steps in if there was an injury to Charles or King during the course of the tournament. So that's set. The second thing I wrote down is actually what I started the show with, momentum. We've got momentum on our side. In the live call-in last week, I said, and I think even on the show Santoki and I did afterwards, I said, if we lose 3-0, does it matter? And everybody who answered that question said, no, it don't matter. It don't matter because it's not the World Cup. And in the back of my mind, when I asked that question, I was like, so what if we win 3-0? Will everyone say it mattered then? And predictably, everyone has said it matters. So I just need some answers, though. So if we had lost 3-0, what would everyone's take have been? Now we've won 3-0. Is it that now it means we're going to, like, what's everyone's take? For me, it just shows me there's momentum. Some of you said T20 World Cup rankings, T20 international rankings matter. Okay, we've got some rankings points. But for me, the main takeaway is momentum. I think I said it in the last video. Winning has to be a habit. Manchester City, I know someone will say, oh, they just lost to Manchester United in the final. But Manchester City, the reason why they're so good as a football team is because they don't know how to lose, generally speaking. Winning is a habit. When you're a team that wins often, muscle memory kicks in, even when you're under the pump. And that's what Sammy's trying to create with this side. So great momentum. We have one more warm-up game against Australia. I think that's probably going to be one of them ridiculous 12 or 13-a-side type games. So I'm not particularly reading too much into that per se. But again, momentum. Maybe there'll be muscle memory. And if we can go into the tournament with 4 wins under our belt, who knows? Who knows? But the true test, New Zealand and Afghanistan. Never mind Papua New Guinea and Uganda. The third thing, so on the eve of the game, it was announced that Obed McCoy was replacing an injured Jason Holder. I would assume that I'm going to assume that Jason probably could have got through the tournament with some injections and so on and so forth. We don't know what the nature of the injury is, but I'm just going to assume he could have done. When I read the press release, the first thing that went through my mind was they don't want to exacerbate the injury, knowing that the England tour, 3 test match tour, happens straight after the World Cup. And I reckon they probably had one eye on England. And they probably sat with Jason and said, listen, Jason, you can probably get through this tournament, but you're not going England afterwards. And I just wonder if England came into the reckoning and they said, Jason, this is a whole World Cup, your experience, we want you around, but get better and be ready for England. I just wonder if that came into the reckoning. Anyways, Obed McCoy has found his way into the 15-man squad. You know already that Santoki and I believe that Obed should have been there anyway. So he's got in. Unfortunately, it's due to Jason getting an injury. It's never nice for someone to get an injury and miss a home World Cup, much less any World Cup. But it means now that West Indies' bowling attack has a level of variety that we probably needed. Obed in this series took 5 wickets at 17 apiece, economy 9.53. Economy a touch too high, but he did take the 5 wickets. I think he himself spoke in the post-match from game 3 that he was a bit disappointed with how he bowled, thinking maybe game 2, but he came back stronger in game 3. 3 wickets. He's a wicket taker. He's got the off cutter. He's got the slower ball. He's got the quicker bouncer. He's got the slower bouncer. He's even got the Yorker. Obed's variety will be crucial. I don't know if Obed gets straight into the side. Remember, Alzari Joseph has to come back. Dre Russ is coming back. So I don't know if Obed even gets in the side, our first 11, But it's brilliant that we've now got him as an option to turn to should one of our pacers not perform. Takeaway number 4. I'm going to just say this one because I know this is going to upset some of the uncles, but we also have to be realistic. That South Africa team we played was not anywhere close to South Africa's strongest side. Pause. Some of you are immediately going to go, but Mash, our strongest side wasn't there. We hadn't. So Puran, Rothman Powell, Dre Russ, Alzari Joseph. Those are the 4 players who weren't with the squad, who are certain starters. I'm not including Shea Hope because I don't know if he's a certain starter, but Puran, Powell, Dre, and Alzari definitely are certain starters. So we were missing 4 definite starters across the series. South Africa, however, were missing 6. Let me just read out the names of players who did not play in this series, who will 1,000% be in the South African side. Adi Markham, Henrik Klaasen, David Miller, Tristan Stubbs. In fact, it's 7. Sorry, 7, not even 6. Let me start again. Adi Markham, Tristan Stubbs, David Miller, Henrik Klaasen, Rabada, Shamsi, Maharaj. That's 7 players immediately. Maybe let me not over-egg it and say 6 of those 7 are likely to start. Maybe even 5. Okay. But maybe all 7 will start. So when we look at this South Africa side that we just beaten, don't get me wrong, we whooped them and deservedly so, and it was comprehensive, but let's not pretend it was South Africa's best side. Them 7 names, Rabada, Shamsi, let me just call the 4 most dangerous to me. Rabada, Shamsi, Klaasen, Miller. Those 4 alone are a big problem, right? They weren't around. Okay. So yes, it's a win, but we got to be realistic about who we beat. Okay. It's like when we played England at Christmas, and that was an England side without Bairstow, Jofra, Mark Wood, I presume, as well, etc. So the wins are the wins, the momentum is momentum, and no way should we turn our noses up at it. but it wasn't South Africa's strongest side. And this is why I'm saying the true test comes in the World Cup. We can't just be naive enough to say bilateral series win. We're on our way. Semi-finals, World Cup is coming. We also have to be mindful. You can only beat what's in front of you, but we just have to be mindful. Be a touch mindful, people. Just a tiny piece, be a touch mindful. Next, Gudakesh Multi. Spoke about him in the last video. What more can I say? Multi is our middle order's destroyer. He will be absolutely critical to any success we have in this World Cup, and he's shown it yet again. I wonder at what stage Multi's going to start getting T20 franchise deals around the world. If he has a good World Cup, it's almost a certainty that he starts to get picked up in some of those down bad leagues. Shamar Joseph. So Shamar Joseph bowled 8 overs across the 3 games, 3 wickets at 22 apiece, 8.37. Is he the strike bowler that everyone thought he was going to be? Or does he look like somebody who's still learning the T20 game? Are we ready to go into the World Cup guaranteeing him a certain pick alongside Alzari Joseph? Or would you pick Obed McCoy over Shamar Joseph? Interesting times. It's certainly worthy of a debate. I think my opinion hasn't changed from the first game. It was all right. I saw some good stuff. I saw some average stuff. I didn't see anything, though, that made me think he is the definite X factor. That doesn't mean he's bad. No, that's not my point. I just don't think I've seen anything yet that says to me, yeah, he will be the person who we can throw the ball to and say, bring us back into the game. I don't think I've seen that yet. So it's going to be very interesting to see if he starts the tournament ahead of Obed McCoy. What's left? 2 more takeaways. Akil Hussain didn't have a good time with the ball. Let's be honest. Let me find his figures. So Akil Hussain, let's find it, people. Let me find him. Where is he? Here he is. Akil Hussain bowled 8 overs across the 3 matches, took 1 wicket, economy of 11.25. Akil to me starts, and I think sometimes people are quick to forget Akil's consistency level pretty much over the last 2.5 years for the West Indies, right? And before people are quick to dash him away, he was critical in the England series. Let me see if I can find his stats from that England series. I don't know if I'll be able to now off the top of my head, but he was good in the England series alongside Gudakesh Multi. I think sometimes people are quick to say, oh, but Multi's so much better than him. We don't need to play Akil as well. It's 2 left arm orthodox bowlers. We've got Ruston Chase. That's how you can, if you drop Akil, you can get Chase and Multi in the side, and then Shea Holt plays as well. And Akil didn't have a good time of it with the ball in this series, but I still think Akil and Multi will start. Akil bowls in the power play. Multi doesn't really do that. Multi comes in from over 7 to about 15 to bowl his 4-over stretch. Where do you stand on that? Do you know what? Let me throw it to you lot. Where do you stand on Akil? Bad time of it, but he's been so important for us in general that I think he's allowed to have a bad time of it. Or is he not? Where do we stand on Akil? And then the final takeaway I've just got from the kind of series is, what's the answer now? I think everybody who watched that series is probably now thinking, Mash, you were right. There should be a place for Ruston Chase in the squad. Chase got 2 wickets from 6 overs. He bowled 6 overs across 2 games. Didn't play the last one. 6 overs across 2 games, 2 wickets at 19. Economy 6.33. We already knew about Chase's economy in limited overs cricket or T20 cricket. With the bat, where is he? Chase scored 99 runs across the 2 games, 3rd highest run score from only 2 games. He got that blistering 67 and 32 of 30 balls. Strike rate overall of 146. I think it's a given now. I think everybody understands why Chase is important in the balance of this side. How does he get in the side? Oh, do you know what? I just realized, earlier on when I called Puran Powell who they call Puram Powell, Dre, and Alzari. Do you know whose name I forgot? Rutherford. Is Rutherford a certain pick now? I only just remembered Rutherford because in my head I'm thinking, how does Chase get in the side? All along I've been saying it's Chase or Hope. But there's an argument to say that Chase comes in instead of Rutherford. Rutherford just went IPL and played 0 games. I don't see Hetty getting in the side just yet. So there's an argument to say you play Hope and Chase. Interesting. So I guess my takeaway, people, is Chase for me 1000% gets in the West Indies side. The question I'm putting to you lot, the listener, is where and for who does he get in the West Indies side? He's got to get in, but who is he getting in for? Listen, ultimately, people, great series win. We're moving. We're up. The Darren Sammy revolution continues. 4 series wins out of our last 5 as we head into one last game, the warm-up versus Australia, which I think, have I written it in my fixture diary? When is that game? Is it Thursday? 1 second, people. Sorry, when is that game? Well, I have your fixture diary. It's on Thursday, right? I've got 12 p.m. written here. That must be UK time, so midnight, or 12 a.m. even. So it's a warm-up game against Australia. Interesting. One more game, then into the World Cup. We're looking like we're moving. Get in the comments below, people. Let me know what you think. I'll be Machel St. Patrick here, one half the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. You know how we do already. I didn't even put the ticker tape below. See, I just started it without the ticker tape. You can follow the Caribbean Cricket Podcast at Carib Cricket on X, Instagram. Like the video, share the video, subscribe, road to 9K. We're also on TikTok, Patreon, the website, www.caribbeancricketpodcast.com, Facebook. We're everywhere. And if you'd like to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, just head to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. Any little bit counts and helps. There's even super thanks now on YouTube. So if you want to do it that way, use super thanks function. But thank you, everyone, as ever, for listening. I've been Machel St. Patrick here, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you. And good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.